We are off and running on a Tuesday. It's the 29th of April. Welcome inside the vault for a Ravens Lunch Hour live stream. I'm Bobby Trossett. She's Sarah Ellison. So good to be back with you guys. It's time to talk winners and losers internally at the Ravens now that, again, the NFL draft has passed. We're going to learn more about all the upcoming moves when it comes to invitees and invitations that are being sent out for undrafted free agents, but we'll wait for an official team list. We know we've been hearing from a lot of you in terms of some of the rumblings in the social media sphere, but we've got that and a whole lot more, including the former NFL general manager, Sarah, who is singling out a potential dark horse player of those 11 prospects that were brought in this past weekend, who he feels like could be a starter in Baltimore for the next 8 to 10 years. So this player is being talked about, but he's not being talked about like that, at least from what I've seen. So we're going to get into that. We'll also share Kyle Brandt's very refreshing take. At least you and I thought it was refreshing on the Shedeur Sanders conversation. And as promised, starting tomorrow at 12:30 and the rest of the week at that time slot, we will check in with an AFC North representative from each team to take a look at how they review how the Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and Cleveland did throughout the draft. So all that and more is what we have coming up. It's great to see you. Let's get after it.
Yeah, it's good to see you. And it is going to be a day we get after it because we are matching today. So, we just are on the same page. We're on the same wavelength. I think we're good to go. So, but Bobby, yeah, I was a little taken aback. So Mike Mayock was on the Rich Eisen show, and Rich just opens it up like, who had a good draft? And so he names the Ravens first, but then one of his comments on one of these players, the dark horse, I thought was very bold. But given Mike Mayock's football acumen, I sure hope he's right, because this would be massive for the Ravens. Here we go.
That handles business, whichever one. I know I'm going macro with you.
Hold on.
Which drafts leap out at you? Which ones you go, okay, that checks a lot of boxes, that handles business, whichever one. I know I'm going macro with you here. You go for it.
And it's kind of like, I respect the hell out of teams that know who they are.
Okay.
That philosophically have they know. You've heard me talk about the Baltimore Ravens forever.
Right.
And it's for a reason. When Ozzie Newsome was there, they knew who they were and they knew how they were going to draft. Eric DeCosta was in the building with him all those years, and nothing's changed. So if the board dictates, they'll move up. They're not afraid to move up. If they have a chance to move down and the board dictates, they move down. But if the board's falling their way, they have the patience to stick and pick. And at 27, they get Malachi Starks from Georgia, who smells like a Raven. And I knew from about October that he was going to be a Raven. Okay?
Yeah.
He's got an edge about him. He loves ball. He can play nickel and safety. Mike Green, they get him at 59. I had him at 15 to Atlanta. He had the off-the-field stuff. So there's an asterisk there. But he's a big-time player. And Emory Jones, sitting there in the third round at 91, if he doesn't start this year because he's got some developmental components to his game, I think he's going to start the next 8 to 10 years at right tackle for the Ravens. So I look at that group of guys, and as you go down, there are guys like even in the 6th round, like Longer Beam from Rutgers, Peebles, the defensive tackle, undersized D tackle from. I mean, that's a Ravens draft. I love that.
All right, Bobby. So the first two comments we've talked about, right? He said that Malachi Starks smells like a Raven, and he knew back in October that Malachi was going to be here. Worst kept secret in the NFL draft that the Malachi Starks would land in Baltimore. Everybody but you predicted it. You wanted to be a contrarian there. I didn't predict it either. I'm just having fun with you. Then he says, Mike Green, steal, right? He had him as a number 15. Some people had him anywhere between 10 and 15 in terms of overall players, maybe the second best edge rusher in the draft. We're going to get back to him and some comparisons that we have his numbers with Abdul Carter. But then it was that third guy he named being Emory Jones in the 3rd round. Now, we've discussed here that for now, he's going to be the Patrick McCary replacement. because he can be that sweet people. And the Ravens are going to give him a chance to compete at guard. They want to see what he can do there. But here comes Mike Mayock saying he may not start this year at tackle. But he declares him because he might have some developmental stuff. But then he says that he might start for the Ravens for the next 8 to 10 years. Bobby, those are predictions that are reserved for first rounders. Maybe a second rounder, right? But a third round offensive tackle, if the Ravens were able to find a third round offensive tackle like Orlando Brown Jr., he was, I believe, the third round also. Although he didn't stay in Baltimore because he wanted to be a left tackle, but he for sure could have been around in Baltimore for 8 to 10 years. His talent was like that. And so if the Ravens can do that again, we're in the third round. We don't know how much longer Ronnie Stanley will last. We know that they found a guy that they can keep on one of the tackle positions in Roger Rosengarten. And if they were able to follow up Roger Rosengarten as a second rounder, and then the very next year in a third rounder, find a guy that will last as long as Roger, and they kind of come up together, that would be major. That would be major. That was a bold statement from Mike Mayock, and I sure hope he's right.
It's very encouraging. It takes me back to last year when you and I were privileged to bring on Tyler Columbus, who coached Roger Rosengarten throughout his high school process. He won won a Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos and Peyton Manning, former NFL offensive lineman. And he told you and I without hesitation that Roger has the ability to be a future left tackle in this league. And he felt like the Ravens saw that in him. Well, as you just outlined eloquently, we know that they are, for the time being, in pretty darn good shape in their bookend tackles. But that doesn't mean that, which is kind of what you're alluding to, based on Ronnie's history, that he will be able to fulfill the next 3 years, which is what he was awarded with that contract extension. So what an insurance policy if this is indeed the case.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it isn't, because of his positional flexibility, you get the sense that, and because of his athleticism, by the way, I had to be reminded, he's 6'5", 315. I pulled up his draft score. According to Next Gen Stats, they had him as the 6th ranked tackle in this year's class when it comes to pure athleticism scores with an 83 overall grade. So even if he's not going to be a tackle in the next year or two, hopefully at some point he'll get some run at guard. And if not, he's going to be your McCary replacement like you just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
So what an awesome stable that they're forming right now, if this is indeed the case. And Mike Mayock sticking his neck out there, but as a former GM, a former evaluator, I think he feels pretty comfortable doing so. And he likes what he sees in the athletic Emory Jones, and you just got to hope that it translates in Baltimore.
Yeah, and I guess, I mentioned that it would be at tackle, but he actually didn't specify. He just said an 8 to 10 year starter, and he could become a starter this year if he balls out as a guard. He'd have to make that transition. But I mentioned this yesterday, of his 2,355 snaps he took at LSU, 2,323 were at right tackle. So that's where he's played. That's where he was a starter there. And Bobby, I want to move into some film breakdown that our guy over at All 22 Films kind of cut up. And he just put up different little pieces of film on Twitter yesterday. So I'm going to read some of the things he wrote and then show some of that film. But he said Emory Jones faced high-level competition on a weekly basis over his 3 years in the SEC. The 21-year-old, so he's young, was Baltimore's third selection at 91, and he could serve in a hybrid guard tackle role, similar to what Patrick McCary did. That's what we already said. He said, although, he says, somewhat reminiscent of Roger Rosengarten, Jones has multiple sets and pass protection. This is in spite of just turning 21 in March. The opportunity for Jones to grow at guard or tackle is immense. Okay, let me just show some of the film he put up with that tweet. He's got Emory Jones, number 50, circled. And that's Shamar Stewart right there that he just pancaked, Bobby. Shamar Stewart went to the Bengals, correct, at number 17?
Shamar's in Cincy. Yep.
Shamar's in Cincy. These two could be going at it for years to come. And I like it.
Look at him wrestle. He really just kind of wrestles him down there at the very end.
Yeah.
50 right there on the right-hand side of your screen, like all 22 circled. But look at the relentlessness to stay in the play.
Bye-bye, Shamar. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Here, I'll show one more clip here for that first one. Here he is, number 50. Just, I don't know who that is, but he has no prayer against Emory. His quarterback is chilling back there. Nobody from the right side is getting even close to him, not even sniffing him. He's trying to rip
the hand violence.
Exactly.
How about the hand violence right off the jump? See this? Bang, bang.
Yep.
Right there.
Look at them fighting. And
just
Emory's
kind of knocks him back, right? Doesn't seem like he knocks him back, but he knocks him back with a couple hands here, using him as a punching bag. 15 had no chance.
None. Okay, so then all 22 continues saying either his weekly prep or mid-play adjustments are sharp and precise. Jones adapts to defensive line stunts consistently, passing off defensive ends quickly while staying as balanced on the switch or just taking them down to clear a lane for the quarterback. I think I got a stunt. I hope this one is a stunt. Let me see here. Let's see. So here's number 50. Yep, here's the stunt. Picked up perfectly. Doesn't hesitate. Doesn't get baited in with the outside linebacker. Whoop, and perfect switch. Right? And again, nobody's getting close to his quarterback. So that's stuff that you got to read. That's definitely stuff you got to read. He's right there. No problem. Great anchor. Nobody's getting through. All right, back to all 22. Says he competed against SEC's defensive end, Shamar Stewart. I got a couple more clips on that. Nick Scorton and Princely. Oh boy, I don't know how to say that last name. Umanemelin in 2024.
Can't help you.
Okay, well, I tried. Winning more than his share.
I love to help when I can. I never lie when I can't. And I am helpless in this moment.
Well, we're moving forward. His share of one-on-one engagements in pass pro. And then he also says in the run game, which I didn't get any of those clips, but I'll get two more of Shamar. In the run game, Jones also has the quickness to scoop defensive tackles on the backside of zone concepts, his ability to cut off defensive tackles and match the athleticism of inside linebackers offers a hint at how he could excel with the Ravens. Here's two more against Shamar Stewart. There they are on the left-hand side. Shamar's got nothing. He tried to do a bull rush. Try to get through him. Emory holds. The ball's long gone before Shamar even gets close. Okay. Here's another one with Shamar. Going head-to-head with Emory here on the right-hand side. And look how violent he is against his neck. Look at that. Did you see that, Bobby?
Oh, yeah.
Replay that watch when Shamar comes through. Yeah. And then he comes right in that neck area, and Shamar gets pushed back. You know what I mean? Like you said, the hands are just violent.
Yeah.
As his head goes back. So listen, that's top competition right there. And how do we know it's top competition? Because Shamar was taking number 17. They will be playing each other for years to come. And I like where Emory's at versus Shamar, who really didn't put up a lot of production. And Emory just showed how consistent he was. Stunts, I got you. Bull rush, I got you. Spin move, I got you. Hand fighting, I got you. There are a couple more where he just takes people way out wide, taking a big circle around the quarterback. So there's some, as Mike Mayock said, he's got to develop a little bit more. But he's got all the tools needed to be a long-term answer in Baltimore.
If that's the case, Ravens are in great shape because, as we know, the bookend tackles are under contract for the next 3 years. Roger on his rookie deal still, and Ronnie on the extension that he earned this past offseason. So, you know, Emory would be gravy. Emory developing in a way that, and by the way, I kind of like George Warhop, man. His call from yesterday, and Ravens Productions put forth the video clip. If you guys haven't seen it yet, go check it out with Carson Vincent, the Alabama A&M smaller school guy. It's going to be a developmental tackle for them. George just commanded that phone call, and And Carson's telling him how excited he is and guaranteeing stuff to him, as a lot of these guys do on their draft calls when they're just pouring out emotion and whatnot. And George is like, you better be guaranteeing that. We'll see when you get to camp. And it was just like, oh, that's the interim offensive line coach right there. Nobody really knew him. We knew that he was really well traveled and well respected and experienced last year and after Joe D passed. But it was like, who is George Warhop? Well, you got a little dose of who George Warhop was in that clip yesterday. Go check it out.
That was a really good clip, because a lot of times during these calls, the coaches and all them just let them have their moment. So many guys are like, I got you. I swear to you, I'm popping off. Da, da, da. I remember Trenton Simpson. He was popping off on, Ray Lewis, all that. I'm coming up, all that kind of stuff. And you just kind of let them have their moment. But George Warhop was like, okay, we'll see, because I'm about to kick your butt. So we're about to find out. So yeah, no, he was definitely fun. And Bobby, in the last guy that Mike Mayock had mentioned in that clip, he was really excited about cornerback Robert Longerbeam. I've seen a lot of people pick him as somebody that people really like in those later rounds, including Field Yates. So Field Yates of ESPN, he put out his favorite picks in every round. And he had a couple for, this is round 6, correct? I mean, he's got to be, right? If you're not sure, just guess round 6, because there were 5 of them.
You got a good chance of coming up with the right guess there. But yeah, I believe he was the final pick in the 6th, and then they went and got Garrett Dellinger in the 7th.
Yeah, you're right. He was 6th round 2. He was number 212. I was gonna say you should know, because he was probably the last one you covered, but you were probably so delirious that day. They might all be bleeding together.
Delirious doesn't even begin to describe it, but sure. Yeah, we'll go with delirious.
Okay. Anyway, this is what Field Yates had to say. He says, it is nice to have a specific trait to hang your hat on as a day 3 pick, and Longerbeam's is his excellent ball skills. He led the Big Ten in pass breakups in 2024 with 12, after finishing 2nd the season before for Rutgers with 8. Longerbeam has very good speed and instincts, allowing him to be a play disruptor. And Bobby, remember, Longerbeam is the one who at 5'11" and 174 has a more slender build, which projects him to be in the slot. I had mentioned how the Ravens liked that he was, probably tough despite that size. And I was like, kind of like our Darius Washington, but somebody in the chat, I don't know who it was, they were like, Tavon Young. And yeah, because he was a corner, that kind of a thing, right? So, he's fast, 4.39, 40. As he mentioned, the 12 pass breakups, 2 interception, team captain. So he's somebody that, Bobby, when we get into our winners and losers, between him and the other corner that the Ravens drafted, whose name is slipping my mind right now,
Bilal Cone.
There you go, Cone. Between those two, it's going to be quite the competition at the cornerback spot. So, but I've seen several people name Longerbeam as a dark horse guy to keep your eyes on.
We'll see. Two corners, never enough, as we discussed yesterday. And I have been diligently trying to find, because I am just anal this way, a pronunciation for you for the linebacker that Emory Jones was going up against earlier on, and I have it right here. It is Princely. He is the linebacker for Ole Miss. He was he's Nigerian born, by the way.
Okay.
He's a linebacker, and now he's going to Carolina. He was drafted, so good for him. Carolina Panthers. It is Princely Umanmielen. I probably just totally botched that, but I went and found hold on one second here. Umanmielen. Princely Umanmielen. He's going to be a Carolina Panthers linebacker, and because I am a stickler, that's how we are.
Okay.
There we go.
Very nice.
All right. Before we get to our next topic, or did you have one? Let's see.
No, I think that's
Did you have one more slide there of Mike Green versus Abdul?
Oh, yeah. My bad. Just one more thing. My favorite football pick, as I mentioned yesterday, Mike Green, top, 10 to 15 player overall, maybe the second best pass rusher. Well, Jordan of Ravens Twitter put together a Carter versus Green side by side. Carter, 6'3", 252. Green, 6'3", 248. So basically the same build. Green, 17 sacks at Marshall. Carter, 12 sacks at Penn State. Carter had 68 pressures, Green 65. Carter had a 22.9 pass rush win rate. Green had a 22% pass rush win rate. And then what's PSWR? Pass rush, then pass or
RS, you mean? RS?
Yeah, RS is probably run stop. Okay, yeah, run stop win rate. Is that what it is? 9.4 for Green, 7.6 for Carter. I mean, these numbers are nearly identical, other than really Green having 5 more sacks. Obviously, it's with a different level of competition, but we showed film of him going up against OSU, the national champions, and he was having his way. So just really, really similar numbers, just drives home yet again how close he was to the top pass rusher in this year's draft. So I might every day say something about Mike Green because, like I said, he's my favorite pick football-wise.
Both these players could have very easily ended up in the AFC North too, like we were talking about. Imagine that. Imagine Abdul lining up across Myles Garrett, opposite side Myles Garrett. Instead, he goes to New York. I thought the Giants had a pretty darn good draft, but that's a conversation for another day. Mike Green, chatter, trying to get the head coach of Marshall football on the show. We're doing a bunch of back-end outreach over the last couple of days, trying to get as many guests in here as possible, learn more and more about what is going up and how this is going to translate to the NFL level for a lot of these prospects. Only one super chat, which comes in the form of a member. People are slacking today, I guess, but Kelly Harris has just become a new channel member. She's officially a part of the Voltron community within our channel memberships community. We rolled that out last month, and we've really been enjoying the feedback that you guys have been giving us. And Kelly, welcome. You guys can do the same if you're interested by clicking on the link that we have included in the show notes. It's also a pinned comment right now in the live chat, and there's 3 different membership level tiers to choose from if you're interested in doing so. Appreciate you, Kelly. And that now brings us to our new segment. It's not a new segment. That now brings us to a segment coming off the draft, which is the winners and losers in our eyes, 2 and 2 apiece, by the way, for each of those categories coming off the draft, Sarah. So I guess I'll start. And for me, it's Zach Orr as my first winner. I think it's pretty obvious as to why that's the case. It was clear that while no doubt you'll talk about Lamar in just a bit and why he emerged as a winner from this one.
Hey, don't spoil mine.
a little
spoiler alert.
A little tease, if you will. I think to me, when you walk away from this draft, it's just there's a new level of defensive depth, I think is the right way of putting it, with also some star power sprinkled in. And night 1 and night 2 was a perfect example of that star power. On a lot of people's boards, they got the top-rated safety in Malachi Starks, somebody that has a ton of high leverage snaps under his belt. He's a multi-time national championship winner. He understands what big-time football looks like and requires from his time at Georgia. He's someone who is a high IQ player. You and I continue to use the word cerebral, which I think is deserved. And I think the translation to the NFL level won't necessarily be seamless. There's always going to be a rookie wall that he has to overcome. But I think he has the talent around him and the IQ and the physical gifts to overcome that early on in his NFL career. And when you add on top of that of Mike Green, who we just literally broke down at the top of the show and showed you just how versatile and explosive and violent he is at the point of attack. And we haven't even gotten to the other depth positions like corner that they addressed. It's hard not to view Zach as a winner coming off the weekend. So for me, it starts with Zach Orr. I don't foresee a lot of the noise that he had to endure last year happening this fall early on in year 2 for him. I think he's going to be more experienced. He's got a great staff in front of him, including Chuck Pagano, of course, who is as well respected as any defensive coaches throughout this league. I think Tyler Santucci, don't sleep on him, who's going to be leading the inside linebackers room. They plucked him from the college ranks. He is a highly regarded potential future defensive coordinator. And just when you think about the way the rest of this staff is concocted and the depth that they have up and down all three levels, and the veterans and the youthful movement that they have as well that have come in like a Nate Wiggins and just risen to the occasion, it's hard not to view Zach as a winner. He's my winner number one.
Yeah, that one, could have been mine for sure. I mean, he could be the winner of the entire offseason between the coaching, support that he got and now this draft. And I was so thoroughly impressed with Zach Orr's fortitude, his relentlessness after, going down and the first 10 weeks just being absolutely horrendous. And the way that they were kind of like able to rally together and turn things around for the last 8 weeks of the season. My expectation coming off of that is that he returns this unit to the Ravens standard. I want a top 5, at worst, a top 10 defense again. That's what it needs to be. He has just been given so many tools to do that. They've been able to trim the fat, as they say, and move on from the guys like a Brennan Stevens and a Marcus Williams and some of the others. Now, he still could use a nose tackle. There's still a question of the linebacker next to Roquan Smith, but he's got plenty of pieces between Nate Wiggins and Kyle Hamilton, a new number 1 draft pick, and the second round draft pick, and Mike Green. He's got so many tools at his disposal. I expect the Ravens to return to their standard, and I expect that of Zach Orr, and I think he's going to rise to the occasion. My biggest winner, my number 1, is Lamar Jackson. And I understand that this was a defensive heavy draft, 6 of the 11 picks. And then you really could say 2 were special teams picks in Tyler Loop and Wester, even though he's a wide receiver. I see him more in this first year as a returner. So why do I pick Lamar Jackson? Well, for 2 main reasons. Number 1, the Ravens clearly were serious about continuing the rebuilding of this offensive line, which was brutal come weeks 1 through really the first quarter of the season. And then it started to turn things around. And then the Ravens, what did we just talk about with Emory Jones? That if Mike Mayock is correct, maybe you got yourself a starter with Lamar over the next 8 to 10 years, along with Roger Rosengarten. They took 3 offensive linemen the first time in 6 years in a single draft to take 3. And so the Ravens are serious about building around him. They really didn't need to take skill position players, given that you have Derrick Henry and Justice Hill and Keaton Mitchell. And given that you already have the deepest and best tight end group in the NFL, and given that your wide receiver core is set especially with your top 3 of Flowers, Bateman, and DeAndre Hopkins. And so this is the number 1 offense from last year in most statistical categories. So all you needed to do was continue to build that offensive line. I think that that's what Eric DeCosta set out to do. Here's the other reason why I think Lamar Jackson is a big winner. Bobby, when we had Emory on our show pre-draft, the first question I asked him, and I've heard this be said by many people, but we'll use Emory as the example. The first question I asked him was, Emory, what did the Ravens need to do this draft in order to finally get over the hump in the playoffs? What can they do? What can they add? And he said they have to add an edge rusher who can take over games. That's what they need to do. And the reason being is that Lamar Jackson-led offense leads in the fourth quarter more often than not because they're putting up so many points. And you need to have a defense that can seal the deal. And that defense couldn't do it last year. How many times did they get into a shootout with the Bengals? They just couldn't do anything. And so Lamar had to come in with his squad and just keep scoring. But and we talk about Patrick Mahomes and the way that he was beaten in the Super Bowl. You needed a defense that can, bring some honor to what Lamar Jackson, the offense, is doing. So once Lamar Jackson does his job, we want a defense that can finish. And I think with the addition of Mike Green, that helps Lamar Jackson as much as anybody. Let Lamar go score, do his thing. But I want to see Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry on the bench in the fourth quarter like we used to see a lot in 2019. If you have a defense that can hold up their end of the bargain, we will see that more often. So I think between fortifying and the second phase of the offensive line rebuild, and then by getting a defense, especially with Mike Green, and now you've added Malachi Starks to make sure nothing's going over your head and easily scoring to keep up with Lamar, I think that makes Lamar Jackson a big winner after this 2025 Ravens draft.
Nobody's going to be surprised about my second winner. It is Chuck Smith. And not because maybe you definitely agree, but it's just because I love Chuck Smith. That's why you wouldn't be surprised if you're following the show on a consistent basis. He's the Ravens outside linebackers coach. He'll be gearing up for year 3, and it's well documented that the first 2 seasons he's been at the helm, they've either led the league in sacks or they've been second in sacks. And I don't think it's any coincidence. But here's why he's the biggest winner. We know who's going to be back, or one of the biggest winners. We know who's going to be back. We know that Adafe will be back on the 5th-year option. We know that Kyle Van Noy on the back 9 of his career continues. They continue to get such production from somebody who is so old in football years. And I put some air quotes there for the audio-only audience. And you know the interior pressure that he's going to continue to get from the Nnamdi Madubuikes of the world, from the Travis Joneses of the world. And we'll see how he develops the highly motivated new fan favorite, Aeneas Fub Peebles. Okay. Fub is his nickname. That's self-proclaimed nickname, by the way. The reason why, Sarah, is since he's been in the program, they have not drafted an edge rusher much like the quality that Mike Green comes out of college with and having proven. He led the FBS, as we've discussed many times now, in overall sacks with 17 last year. He had over 20 tackles for loss. The dude is a game wrecker, and now Chuck gets to put his mark on a premier player that fell to them at 59. Chuck gets to show why he is so revered in the pass rush community at the Von Miller Pass Rush Summit on an annual basis when it comes to all the specialist work that he did before John Harbaugh gave him a chance to be an actual traditional coach by making a non-traditional hire with somebody that had no coaching background, even though he worked with all these players individually. That's what makes him a winner. That's what I'm excited to see. Let the grooming begin.
Boom. All right, my next winner, tight end Mark Andrews. All off season, he had to hear Eric DaCosta not fully embrace him. He's had to hear people like us and other reporters, content creators, everybody speculate whether or not he was going to be traded. It was abundantly clear that Eric DaCosta sent a message to the 31 other GMs saying, hey, I'm open for business on my all-pro tight end, but I'm not going to just take anything. And so the reports, the streets, whatever you want to say, we're telling us that there were talks, but no offer ever came in. And so that finally made Eric DaCosta during the draft weekend say, at this point, I expect Mark Andrews to be on our team. And with the draft behind us, that pretty much closes the door. That pretty much, could somebody come in last minute, do something? Maybe. But I think that pretty much closes the door on that. I'm moving forward into 2025 fully convinced that it will be Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, and Charlie Kolar again. And I think Mark gets a chance to redeem himself as a Raven, right? And I think all of us would want that for him. I still would like to see Isaiah Likely get some more snaps, and I would like to see Isaiah Likely get called upon in big moments of big games. But Mark Andrews is going to be here, And I think that he's going to put up a lot of production. There's no question in my mind that he's going to put up a lot of production. I'm still personally nervous in big moments. I, again, would like to go to Isaiah Likely if they're going to call a tight end's number. But he gets a big winner. He's a big winner because he gets a chance to redeem himself and make sure that what happened in Buffalo was not the last play that he'll wear or that he'll have in the purple and black. So I'm happy for him. I hope that he's able to redeem himself, because that would be good news for everybody. If he truly redeems himself, it's good for him. It's good for the Ravens. It's good for winning. So Mark Andrews, a big winner from the draft weekend.
Who lost? The first of two for me. A loser coming off of draft weekend. Not a loser, but a loser coming off the weekend in terms of football terms. And for me, it's linebacker Trenton Simpson, who's gearing up for year 3, a former pick out of Clemson that, of course, had to sit behind Patrick Queen prior to him leaving in free agency to go to Pittsburgh. We all watched what happened last year when he was given the keys to the car alongside Roquan Smith. It didn't look great right off the jump, and it was a trickle-down effect on this defense that was already struggling against the big play and struggling mightily. Underneath pass coverage was an issue for the middle part of the defense, and we saw that rear its ugly head on opening night. It was a rematch of the AFC Championship game at the time, and all the speed that Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid had at their disposal wrecked the Ravens defense on that opening night. Still, they were in it till literally the end, and in it if it was the difference between a toe, right, when it all came down for Isaiah Likely. From there, you saw some of the processing issues that Trenton was displaying on the field, which ultimately led the team to going towards a rotation with Chris Board and Malik Harrison. It was a demotion for Trenton. And while they continue to build him up publicly, Sarah, their actions say otherwise. Not that they're not building him up, but not that they're 100% sold on Trenton Simpson. They decided off the jump of day 3 this past weekend in the 4th round to go after Cal linebacker Teddy Buchanan. He's a physical freak, has a lot of experience, played at a couple different schools throughout college, high IQ player, really liked his interviewing, and now he's in the building. Is it Trenton's job to lose? Probably, but he's got another dog in there, and look out. They are not sold on you, Trenton. What are you going to do about it? Competition breeds excellence. It's not, as I said all weekend long, Sarah, this is not a eulogy of Trenton Simpson, the football player, but it is some competition, and I wouldn't be feeling safe. And maybe that ends up being the best thing ever for Trenton, but I wouldn't be feeling safe going into camp.
All right. Well, my biggest loser from the draft weekend is kicker Justin Tucker. I think the writing has been on the wall, probably since he put together probably his worst season, definitely his worst season as a pro. His standard was high, but even considering other people's standards, that was a bad season from Justin Tucker. We can count, a couple games that were lost on his leg for sure. And then when the allegations came out on top of it, seemed like the writing was always on the wall. The Ravens have been indicating both publicly and personally to Justin Tucker that they were considering getting another kicker, and that's what they did. They used a 6th-round pick, the first time ever in franchise history where they use a draft pick on a kicker. I'm sure they're going to wait and get Loop in. I believe rookie minicamp usually starts at the end of the week. Following the week of the draft. So we may be seeing rookies coming in sooner than later, and I'm sure they're going to want to get a look at Loop. But I believe that Loop is going to be the replacement for Justin Tucker. I don't know what his future will be after that. And so I view him as probably, for me, definitely the biggest loser of the Ravens draft weekend.
My second one is the outside linebacker room, and here's why. If Mike Green comes in and this explosiveness translates to the NFL level, and they just used 2nd-round draft capital on him, and he fell into their lap, and they're high on him, and everybody is, because he was supposed to be a 1st-round pick, as we've already discussed. If he ends up coming in and is an immediate impact player, the Ravens aren't going to feel pressed, Sarah, to back up the Brinks truck to extend Odafe Oweh.
Yeah.
They may also not feel pressed in keeping Kyle Van Noy around, albeit, yes, team-friendly deals these last few years and resurgence in his early 30s, but they can allocate that money elsewhere perhaps and won't feel pressed to do so. And for Adisa, we just don't know who he is at this point. There is another one that's in the room, by the way, Malik Ham. I believe he's a former undrafted rookie, so he'll have something to say about this over the summer, and Adisa will have something to say about it. Everybody will have something to say about it. But right now, the Ravens are all in on Mike Green. And if I'm the outside linebackers room, I'm thinking to myself, sheesh, if he comes out, they're going to be moving forward with him as their future and then continuing to take swings in the draft in the years that follow.
Yeah, it literally is everybody. It's like you don't need to go spend money on the guys that are about to, end their contract. And then it's these younger guys who, we're hoping that they could step in. And so Mike Green is a big threat to all of them.
And Sarah, let me just add, because I forgot to actually name Ajabo. Of course, he's in that room as well. It's the guys that obviously you're mentioning, right? It's the obvious ones. It's KVN and Adafe that, yes, are coming off their double-digit sack campaigns. But after that, you have the Ajabos, the Adisa Isaacs, and the Malik Hams. But none of those players are away from are outside of potentially being affected from the emergence of Mike Green.
So my final losers, I put 2 defensive backs. I put Ardarius Washington and Jalen Armour-Davis. The reason why I put Ardarius Washington, who I think is going to play a lot in 2025. I think he's going to play a lot. I think the Ravens are going to have 3 safety sets, all that kind of stuff. But he just signed his restricted free agent tender. And so his future in Baltimore isn't guaranteed, and he won't have quite the opportunity he had last year, where like things were falling apart and he was the guy. Now he has certainly earned plenty of respect and plenty of playing time, but he's going to need a huge season in order to get paid. And with Malachi Starks now here on a rookie contract for potentially the next 5 years, if they use a 5th year option on him, then, and they're going to be paying Kyle Hamilton, there just isn't going to be room for, a payment to Ardarius Washington. So I hope for him, because I love Ardarius. I hope that he still is able to put on tape some really good things to repeat what he did in 2024 for the other 31 teams to look at him and sign him to a deal, because he plays bigger than his size. He's got a heart bigger than his size. I'm like inspired by him, but I think with Malachi Starks in the room, he definitely takes a hit. And then I think Jalen Armour-Davis takes a hit with the addition of 2 new cornerbacks with Cone and Longer Beam, although he's more of a slot guy. But Jalen Armour-Davis, I think, is going to be fighting for his life in training camp. I think he's going to be fighting for his roster life. Unfortunately for him, he just has had so many injuries that he hasn't been able to get his footing in Baltimore. And I think that the Ravens still believe a lot in TJ Tampa, but TJ also has some competition. But I'd say Jalen Armour-Davis and his roster spot is not guaranteed with the infusion of these cornerbacks.
Keep in mind, JAD was part of that litany of picks back in the 4th round in 2022. So that means after 2025, he is not guaranteed. This is the final year that he is under contract throughout his rookie deal that was signed again back in 2022. So that is our winners and losers segment. Let us know. Give us some feedback in the live chat. Super chats before we talk about the AFC North more. And Capybara says, Chuck Smith and Mike Green are going to be football's Cuz D'Amato and Mike Tyson. Sod Blitz 34 checking in.
Cyblitz says likely needs to start or get majority of the starts.
Omni King, Eagles defense had 13 turnovers in the playoffs. Ravens had 0. Hopefully with better coaching and Mike Green, the Ravens can force turnovers for Lamar. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you guys for being here. Great audience today, especially in the YouTube space with well over 800 on this Tuesday. Over 2,300 concurrents all in all across platforms. Tila, thank you guys for being here. If you haven't already done so, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell.
So Renee Bugner went out and he compiled 24 different websites and draft evaluators and their grades for all 32 teams. So this had to be a lot of work. And then he put all the grades together and had a cumulative GPA for all 32 teams. Okay, so sometimes it's dumb to just look at one or two grades. So maybe there's a little bit more wisdom in putting everybody together and finding a GPA that goes across 24 different graders, right? So you're not getting too much bias stuff from one grader to another. So when he put this together, the Ravens were one of just 9 teams to get A's across the board, to have that GPA that's in that kind of blue A range. And he has the Ravens GPA at 3.40, which puts them in at number 8. Number 8 in terms of GPA, the 8th best grades come to the Baltimore Ravens. If you want to know the top 7, it's the New England Patriots, New York Giants, Seattle Seahawks, Kansas City Chiefs, Philadelphia Eagles, Las Vegas Raiders, Dallas Cowboys. So the Ravens in the top 10, they're also the best in the AFC North when you put all these grades together. Although the Cleveland Browns are right on their heels, according to these graders. They're number 9. Pittsburgh Steelers, number 16. And then the Cincinnati Bengals. Boy, Bobby, have I heard a lot of people dunking on them for their draft. They are number 32 with a GPA of 2.06. It's the worst. It's the worst GPA of everybody. So,
well, think about it. When you have a season that goes south for one reason and one reason only, and that's the one phase of football, which was defense.
Mm-hmm.
And Trey Hendrickson's unhappy. Your perennial Pro Bowl. Try saying that 10 times fast.
Perennial Pro Bowler. Okay, I can't see it at once.
You tried to dunk on me there if you could do that, didn't you?
I just wanted to see. Perennial Pro Bowler. Perennial Pro Bowler. Perennial Pro Bowler. Boom, I just got 3. Okay, go ahead.
I said 10, though.
Oh, man.
Trey is unhappy, and he's going public about it. I guess you're not paying him because of all the money that you've allocated to the wide receiver room, and that's what your franchise quarterback, asked you to do, essentially, put the pressure on you. And then on top of that, with all your deficiencies last year on the defensive side of the ball, you go and draft the universally agreed upon project in Shamar Stewart as your first rounder. So I can see why there's a little bit of a lukewarm reaction to what the Bengals did. They did draft several defensive players, but nobody, I don't think anybody's coming in overnight and changing their defense. And so I still view them as somebody that will be a threat, but how much are they going to have to put up a game in order to be that threat that we know they're capable of being offensively?
Right.
A lot.
Right. It's very interesting. I could dig deeper in each one of these, but I know you have already booked reporters from all 3 AFC North teams. Tomorrow we lead with which team?
Wednesday at 12:30, we have Brooke Pryor, a very popular guest of ours that's been on many times for the Pittsburgh perspective from ESPN.
Okay.
Thursday is the Cincinnati Enquirer's Kelsey Conway. The live chat better be quiet throughout that entire interview. I'll just say that. Looking forward to Kelsey, and her brother Devin is a patron and subscriber of ours, which is going to be awesome. And then Tony Grossi from Cleveland will be joining us Friday at 12:30.
Okay, so we won't dive too deep. You know what? We should just say in general, not just with Kelsey, but let's be kind to our guests in the chat. Let's be kind to our guests. You can go after them for their football takes, but let's be kind to them outside of that. Let's leave personal stuff personal.
Or else. Or else.
I love how we have to give these speeches to our chat.
More quick hits. On to the Cleveland, by the way. We just mentioned Cleveland. Tony Grossi will be joining us on Friday, and the Shedeur Sanders conversation continues. I just saw on social media that he is officially in Browns country. He's reported to the facility, and we know that he had to wait a long time, almost 5 full rounds, until he heard his name called by the Cleveland Browns. He joins a group, and by the way, it didn't matter that he fell. Look at the top 10 best-selling jerseys from the 2025 NFL draft. He still finds himself in the top 3. Travis Hunter, of course, went 1, Cam Ward went 1, but I'm saying on this list, Travis Hunter is the first ranked jersey seller, then Cam Ward, who went 1 to Tennessee, then Shedeur Sanders, so on and so forth throughout the draft. But Sarah, I know you and I and Kyle Brandt's words resonated with us. Kyle is a panelist and host on Good Morning Football, and his thoughts and really what became a rant on the aftermath of the Shedeur Sanders media saga that was this weekend. We appreciate it, and we're curious to get your guys' thoughts as well. Here's Kyle Brandt.
Over the weekends, this went from a football story to a drunken media story. It became one of these seismic media rodeos where you can sit there and watch people that you followed for years say things that you know they don't believe, or at best they were saying from some emotional place where they were so unhinged and off the reservation. I mean, I'm hearing things like conspiracy, collusion. What are you talking about? Do you know that video of you saying that to your phone? You know it's going out to the public, right? Aren't you embarrassed? Or are you just that happy to see the engagement being churned out by people clicking on the video of a circus clown screaming conspiracy theories? Do you not think that if one team thought Shedeur Sanders would help them win one more game than the other guy, that they wouldn't immediately draft him? They would. I promise you. These coaches, these GMs are obsessed, desperate, nomadic people who just want to win games and not move their families to another city after they're fired. It has become this whole thing one of these media events where the public discourse is so off-putting that it makes fans root against Shedeur just because they're so turned off by the way media members are screaming about him. It's sad and it's stupid. And when something is this far gone, like this story has been, onto planet Mars, this far into the ether, this so reckless in the commentary, you got to search for some simple truths, just a few simple footholds, okay? And here's where I come out. No teams loved Shedeur in the draft. Nobody loved him as a player. If anybody loved him, they would have drafted him way earlier. Maybe some liked him, but nobody loved him. And I think that if you were drafting a player, a guy to not be a starter, later rounds, you're not drafting this quarterback to be a starter, you're bringing him as a backup, I suspect that some teams didn't want the extra things that accompanied Shedeur. They didn't want the attention for a backup quarterback, the media for a backup quarterback, the huge megaphone that backup quarterback's father possesses and is not afraid to use. A starter? Sure, why not? We'll put up with it. But we don't love him as a player, so we're not going to draft him in round after round after round because all the other stuff for a backup, the juice is not worth the squeeze. I don't know if that is a bat bleep insane enough take to keep up with all the front runners talking about Shedeur right now, but that's my only practical reaction to what happened, and I hope that's enough.
Oh, it's enough for me. That summarizes it perfectly. I know there's going to be backlash to this. I already see the chat who's vehemently disagreeing with Kyle Brandt. You guys are all entitled to your opinions, but this got completely overblown and completely taken to a world, Sarah, that was just so hyperbolic, so outlandish that it was actually hard to consume throughout the weekend. And Kyle's best point in all of that is when you have these established, respected media members with great influence, pushing collusion, pushing these narratives, yeah, it ends up actually working against Shedeur because you have this huge percentage of folks that are fans of the sport that ultimately, for whatever reason, start to actually turn against Shedeur because they're upset about the potential narratives and the anger that comes with it and the high emotion, hot button topic that this became. That was a refreshing take for me.
Yeah, you were saying people were starting to root against him. I was like, can the Ravens pick him up? Like, let's have the Ravens pick him up. Listen, when something weird is happening, I think oftentimes you can choose between two kind of buckets of what's going on. Either people are like in this case colluding, which implies corruption and like just deception and like kind of evil, kind of like intentions. Maybe evil's too strong of a word, but you know what I mean? Collusion implies corruption, all that kind of stuff. Or you can think a bunch of people are dumb for the decisions they're making. I think that NFL front offices think that they're better at evaluating quarterbacks than they actually are. And so I think it was a bunch of dumb decisions. That's where I lay with it. Because you look at Brock Purdy, who was Mr. Irrelevant. They were dumb and didn't see what he could become. Now, I'm not saying he's like the next GOAT, but he is now the franchise quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. The NFL did not see Tom Brady. It was dumb. The NFL didn't see Lamar Jackson until number 32 and took people like Rosen over Lamar Jackson. It was dumb. Patrick Mahomes didn't get selected until the second round. That was dumb. I think that the NFL thinks that they're better at drafting or analyzing quarterback play. I think they think they're better at it than they actually are, because we can name a bunch of busts that have happened over and over and over again with some of these top picks. So that's where I mostly go. And it's partly why we were having debate Friday night, Bobby, that I don't put stock into the Steelers were being controlled by Aaron Rodgers, or that the teams were like afraid of Deion Sanders. I think Kyle was right. I think it was the teams think that Shedeur is not a franchise quarterback. And therefore, that's why they're putting Aaron Rodgers, maybe the Steelers are putting Aaron Rodgers above Shedeur. Or then maybe Deion comes into play, or it's like, well, I guess I don't want to deal with him if I don't think that Shedeur is my franchise quarterback. But if there's one thing I know, after covering and working in the NFL for 20 years, it is full of a bunch of dudes that want to win because their reputations, their money, and their jobs are on the line. I see players put their bodies on the line. I see them sacrificing. I see coaches sleeping at the facility, and not, if they get sleep at all, they'll sleep on their couches. They'll sleep on their floors. They'll do whatever it takes. They sacrifice their family time. They sacrifice everything to succeed in this league. And I think that if they thought that Shedeur Sanders was going to be a franchise quarterback, they would have taken him. I think if the Steelers thought that Shedeur Sanders was a franchise quarterback, they would have said, peace out, Aaron Rodgers, and they would have gone with him. That is why I was having that argument with you Friday night, because now I think they're wrong, just like I think they were wrong about Lamar Jackson. They were wrong about Tom Brady. They were wrong about Tom Purdy. So I think that they made dumb decisions, and they aren't seeing the talent that he could be. And you know what? Maybe I'm the one who ends up being wrong, but that's how I see it. I see a league who wants to win at all cases. Look at what the Ravens just did with Mike Green. With a history of Ray Rice and Justin Tucker and the sexual allegations, now the Ravens put in their research, and according to them, they feel like they looked into the allegations and they feel confident in taking Mike Green. But they knew what people were going to say about him regardless, given what's going on with Justin Tucker and the history in Baltimore. They did it anyway because A, they think that, he clears, right? And B, they're willing to put that on the line because they think Mike Green can help them win. Teams will put up with almost anything if you think that they can help you win. That's where I think Kyle Brandt is right, but I also think that they're wrong on their analysis of Shedeur Sanders.
Well, it's precisely why this happened yesterday. Cleveland doesn't sign Deontay Johnson, given his most recent track record, if they don't think that he can somehow fill a role for them. Shedeur Sanders wasn't a first-round talent in the quarterback-needy team's eyes. It's as simple as that. And then he started to free fall. Was he a fifth-round talent? Probably not. I think we all agree that he was somewhere maybe day 2, and for whatever reason, whether it was the interview process that he totally disrespected, by the way, or the entire pre-draft process that perhaps he thought he was better than, he started to fall. The Deion impact is in there. I've been on record for talking about that as well. I feel like that was absolutely a part of the puzzle, especially for young coaches when it comes to the organizational structure And what happens when Deion Sanders and that dynamic personality and the icon that he is ends up in a franchise, even if it is by the extension of his son. Deontay Johnson is now going to Cleveland. As you see here, Mike Garafolo noted they're signing the veteran wide receiver. How many teams did you count out yesterday that he's been on since his time in Baltimore or since his time in Pittsburgh? There's a slew of them. So Cleveland does not do this if they don't feel like he can fill a role for them offensively. Teams didn't like Shador. They didn't love him. I guess they liked him. And ultimately, he free falls to the 5th round. The race card narrative, the collusion narrative, it's just it's so suffocating. I'm so sick of it. Why is there this need to push conspiracy theories? It's the draft. It's the National Football League. The NFL spoke, and now Shador has to acknowledge that, take it and run. And you wish the best for him from here on out. He's going to be a great underdog story. He went from being the opposite, Sarah, of an underdog to now he gets a chance to be the underdog in Cleveland. And it's going to be fun to watch. I wish the best for him.
I absolutely do. And then in the case of Deontay Johnson, just to keep going on that note, this is now over the last 14 months. Deontay Johnson has been with 5 different teams, 6 different movements because he was twice with Baltimore. So he's with the Steelers on March 11th of 2024, then with the Carolina Panthers on March 12th of 2024. Then mid-season of 2024, he goes to the Baltimore Ravens. Then at the end of 2024, he goes to the Texans. And at the end of the season of 2024, he comes back to the Baltimore Ravens. And here we are in April 2025, and he's going to the Cleveland Browns. And so once again, I use this meme that Jonas Schaefer also used, where, you've got two characters on TV saying, well, did it work for those people? No, it never does. I mean, these people somehow delude themselves into thinking it might, but it might work for us. So good luck to the Cleveland Browns. They have about 5 different quarterbacks, and I don't think they got, too much new wide receiver help. And so that may be why they went and got Deontay Johnson, try to see what he might be able to bring. And I'm sure they're seeing what everybody else saw, the talent. But I have a hard time thinking if Deontay Johnson couldn't be happy in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson, or he couldn't be happy with the Texans and, them being in the playoffs, I don't know if he's going to be happy with the Cleveland Browns, who win even less, and they don't know who their quarterback is going to be.
Another reason why Hard Knocks should be on its way to Cleveland right now, because they got another piece to the puzzle for what would be a highly entertaining series throughout this upcoming season. And we haven't even talked about the quarterback room this episode. We did earlier in the week. Well, I guess we talked about the quarterback room a little bit. Shador's going to be in it, but Flacco's going to be there. Pickett's going to be there. Who else is in there? Dylan Gabriel, the rookie. And, oh, by the way, Deshaun Watson's still under contract as well. The Steelers, sticking with the AFC North and wide receivers, are signing a veteran Robert Woods to a 1-year, $2 million deal. He's been floating around on these kind of contracts, Sarah, for the last several years. Don't think it's much of a needle-moving acquisition whatsoever. Rap Sheet refers to it as a new target and big-time locker room presence, which is kind of exactly what I was just getting at. I don't think he moves the needle on the field, but he's a respected veteran, got a ton of experience under his belt. And now he's on his way out of Houston to Pittsburgh.
I just like the way Ian Rappaport wrote this. He's like, a new target and big-time locker room presence for whoever their quarterback ends up being. Right. And by the way, and we'll talk more with Brooke Pryor about this, but I do believe the Steelers GM made it a point to say that, he made it a point that it probably is still going to be Aaron Rodgers. They still have hope for that.
Yeah.
They need that. They definitely need that.
Live chat is a hellhole right now.
Is it?
All I'll say is this. Did I take one personal shot during my thoughts on the Shador Sanders conversation? The answer is no. The live chat should do the same thing. It's a simple debate. I know it's a hot button item, highly emotional for some. I get it. But the fact that it's just immediately you disagree and we got to go the personal shots route is just so it's so narrow-minded. Like, have an open mind. I'm listening to you. You guys listen to me if you want. And if not, disagree. But disagree respectfully. Come on, there should be more of that.
Yeah, I wish I could speak to it. I didn't see what they were saying.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
I mean, just to me, it's like either they colluded or they made a dumb decision. I'm going with they made a dumb decision.
I wish we could live in a world where there was more open-mindedness to conversation, because that's what you and I just had. It was a conversation. We shared our opinions based on what we've discussed and researched and observed over the course of the last few days. There is no agenda. It is genuine. That's what we always do inside this channel. And yet the live chat becomes it's just sad. It's honestly sad. Back to the super chats. We left off with Omni King. I'll let you pick up with Robert Smith.
Robert Smith says Washington will fill the strong safety role with Starks and free safety while Hamilton roams free. I don't think he's in too much trouble. I think what I'm saying is a bit more long-term in terms of he's not going to be signed long-term for the Ravens. That's where I think that hurts him. And the second thing is they won't have 3 safety sets all the time. And so last year he was one of the top 2. And so now you have 3, and in a contract year, you would like more opportunity. I think that Ardarius Washington is going to be on the field plenty, but not as much as last year, because I think when you only have 2, it's more likely to be Starks and Hamilton, your number 1 draft pick and your all pro. And so when you hit 3 safety sets, for sure, Ardarius Washington is going to be in there. He's going to be in that rotation. And so I think that, but it won't be as big of an opportunity as he had at the end of last year, unless there's an injury, and hopefully there's not. And I think because it's a contract year, that less opportunity is going to make it harder for him to get paid, because he's got to prove to 31 other teams that his size doesn't matter, that he plays bigger than his size. And that's what we saw the last 8 weeks where he stayed healthy because he had been injured before. So I do think it takes a little bit of a hit, not as much as like Jalen Armour-Davis, right? But not as big of an opportunity as he had last year.
Another one from Robert. He writes, that moment when Rich Eisen said, let's give Sanders his moment, but every QB drafted after Ward did not get to have their moment because the media glazed Shador. Here's one from Not a Fan.
He says, Johnny Football could do coke and party and go first overall, but Shador having confidence and a father with power, that's too much extra baggage. But again, that's, I think, at least my point, which is that if they felt like Shador Sanders was their future franchise quarterback, I think that they would have been fine with that. I know I would have been. This is what we argued about. That's why I said Dion is not a factor if they believe in him. Aaron Rodgers is not a factor if they believe in him. Those are only factors if they don't believe in him. Yeah, you're right. Johnny Football was like this partier, but they took him because they believed him. And that's where I think the decision is dumb. But football teams will put up with anything if they think that you're going to win them games.
Not a Fan and I got in a good back and forth about this topic over the weekend, and he actually called in too. Great guy. I thought it was a cool conversation. Maybe it'll continue after this. I don't agree with this comparison, this analogy, this reference that you're making. Shador disrespected the process. He botched the interviews. Go listen to the Todd McShay clip in terms of how his interview went with Brian Daboll and the Giants. They gave him an install package. He was not prepared for it. They called him out about it, according to Todd's sources, and Shador didn't like it. He did the bare minimum in the interview. Then people start talking. The pre-draft process, he did it his way. A lot of times it's his way or the highway, and that's the way it's perceived when you look at Shador. I get it. I get this guy is as confident as you will ever see. I think you need a percentage of that. You need that in your MO to get to the NFL level. But teams didn't like it, and the NFL spoke. That's what it was. The NFL spoke. Should he have fallen as far as he did? I think you and I disagree with the way that he free-falled. But in terms of the opening round and where he was projected to go by some, and how hyperbolic it became and overblown it became from a media craze standpoint, was just total. It took away from, it became unclear and disingenuous in terms of what his actual stock was because of the media hot button that he became. That's the way that I view it.
I'll just say this, Bobby. This is where we slightly differ, just slightly, respectfully. Is like, I feel like you're putting more stock into interviews or Aaron Rodgers or Dion more than it needs to be. What I'm saying is, like,
you're right. You're right.
Because at the end of the day, if they believed that Shedeur Sanders was a franchise quarterback, those interviews would mean nothing. It would be like, well, we didn't love the interview, but man, he's going some places, and we'll deal with the interview and whatever. And so that's where, like, we kind of differ. Like a bad interview, if you believed in him, might knock you to the second round. It doesn't knock you to the fifth.
Agreed with that, but I think based on what go ahead.
I'm just saying, I just think you're putting too much stock in those other things. And so to me, you're going into conspiracies a little bit too. It's just a different conspiracy. Like yours is like Aaron Rodgers is controlling the Steelers, or they don't want to be with Dion, or the interviews were so bad. And it's like, no, all that stuff is secondary. At the end of the day, it's whether they think that they can win with him. That's it. Everything else is all just secondary.
To me, they all, even if they are secondary in terms of the film and the tape, they still hold merit in my eyes. We disagree on that. We've talked about this time and time again. But when you disrespect the interview process and it goes viral, according to McShay's report, in terms of the install package that's presented to you, and it's not just a traditional interview that you flunk, you actually come across as disinterested. That to me is more than just the traditional interview fail. That's like, how's this guy going to be in a locker room? How's this guy going to be at the NFL level? Does he care enough? Does he love football enough? And that's all I'm saying.
I hear you, and I'm not saying it has zero merit. All I'm saying is that, in your mind, does that knock you from the first round to the fifth round?
A bad interview?
Yeah.
No, but that's
what I'm really getting at.
I know, but I'm talking about, yes, we're from a traditional interview standpoint, there's no chance that should knock you, right? If you're comfortable with the film, if you're comfortable with the player, of course not. But like I said, I think this was a different level of an interview failure. That's all I'm saying. I think this was a different level, the way in which he came across as disinterested, and then it was a trickle-down effect from there. That's all I'm saying. Olu, did I read this one or – okay, this is me. Olu says, I appreciate Kyle, but it's naive, meaning Kyle Brandt, but it's naive to think there was more to it than just talent. Every talent evaluated him at a high level, higher than every other quarterback in the draft after Cam Ward. It sprinkles on BS. Nuno.
He said, would a coach want to draft Shedeur and put their job on the line? His father wants to coach him. That's why he fell. His father has a job. And again, I don't know. I just know a Deion Sanders. I know a Deion Sanders behind the cameras that's portrayed differently in front of the cameras. And so that's why I'm not buying into the Deion stuff. I mean, I'm sure their parents, obviously are, go hard for their kids and whatnot. But I think that Deion is super smart. And I think that he would, I don't think he would get in the way of his child's success. And I think that the NFL, at least I know the Baltimore Ravens, anybody that's interacted with them, is you can talk to him. He's a great guy. And so that's why I just don't put too much stock on the dad stuff personally, but maybe other teams don't know him well.
You guys know where I fall on it. And just in the sake of time, I can't keep going back and forth with the super chats, but Olu, this is yours.
Oh, he says, and I agree with Olu on this one. He goes, I actually have met Coach Prime, and he is nothing like they are painting him. Confidence and cocky is a slippery slope, Bobby. You're missing this one. Sarah, I agree with your take on this.
Drew says,
go ahead.
Drew says, most watched third day in history, Bobby. It was about the money, not race. Calm down, my boy. Laughing. #Vault. #DeGoat. #Baltimore Dogs. Viewership was through the roof for sure. And I'll take this one just because it's not a fan responding to me. Always love Bobby. Agree to disagree. That's all. Handshake for you. Steve. Is it Steve? Not a fan? Was this? Did you say your name was Steve over the weekend? It's hard for me to remember sometimes, but I think it was Steve. Appreciate the super chat, dude. Marcus Frazier.
He says all these draft scouts get their info from NFL scouts and executives. So if Sanders were one or two quarterbacks from beginning to end until the draft, what happened?
Liv B says,
I can only speak for the Ravens. The Ravens do their own drafting. They don't use anybody. They use their own system. They have their own analytics. They have their own scouts. So not all NFL teams use the same draft information.
Liv B, I feel like guys like Johnny Manziel with a similar attitude have left a bad taste. Teams being careful, I think. Maybe not enough to drop to the 5th, though. Mike M.
He says, Boomer said owners told their front offices to remove him from their boards. Some teams couldn't draft him even if they wanted. That's a certain level of, I think he's trying to say collusion there.
James Green says, just like a job in the real world, if you stink it up, you get one chance to make a good first impression. Appreciate all of you guys for chiming in there with super chats. Over 2,600 concurrents and a lot of comments are flying in. We appreciate the back and forth. Look, it's a good conversation. There is nothing personal about it. There is nothing agenda filled about it. Good conversation, Sarah.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Hope people feel the
same way. And I'm sure we'll have another conversation when Tony Grossi comes on Friday, because he's the Browns reporter, and we're going to be talking about the Browns draft on Friday with him.
There will be more. Yeah, there will be much more. Joseph, Hester, and Laura, thank you both for believing in what we're building. You guys give us a ton of support through Patreon on a monthly basis, and we really appreciate you guys. This is your monthly shout out. So patreon.com/RavensVault podcast if you're looking to also support. And you can also become a channel member as well. Actually, somebody just celebrated their 1 month, which meant that we owed them a shout out. And it was Nuno. Nuno Alves has been a channel member of ours for a month. And Kelly Harris at the top of the program became a new one as of today. So thank you both. And thanks to all of you for being with us. Over 2,600 concurrents as we close. Any other messages from you on the way out?
So I just wanted to clarify something, because I guess I misinterpreted one of the super chats where I said the Ravens do their own scouting. And so they're saying, no, they're saying the TV analysts get their information from the scouts. And so, I mean, I think they tried to. I think to build up their own reputation, they may put a little bit more, emphasis on saying they know what people are thinking. Like, they make it sound like they know maybe more than they do. But I'll just say this, heading into it, I feel like the last couple of days before the draft, the media was starting to catch up a little bit. Like, before, it was always like, Shador in the first round, but then like right before the draft, I felt like Peter Schrager was like, I have no clue where he's going to go. He literally said, hey, I don't know what I'm doing with Shador. So he made this body language where he covered his eyes with his hand and threw a dart. He's like, because I have no idea what's going to happen with Shador. He's like, because I'm hearing things all over the place. And so I think that the media were catching up right before the first round started.
Yep. He was an enigma. Nobody had any idea. And he started falling and then falling and falling. And nobody saw that coming. Manuel's COD channel. What's up, Manny? We debating Shador instead of how our defense will wreck Burrow, the quarterback mess in Cleveland, and whack-a-mole Rudolph. That's a shame.
Yeah, we already did that. Well, that's what we led with, was Mike Green and Emery taking down Shamar Stewart. So we can have multiple conversations over an hour and 20 minutes. Well,
Manny's just using the whack-a-mole, this comment as an excuse to get his whack-a-mole phrase out there, because we all remember Mason and Miles being in it.
That's right.
Several years ago. And Eye of Horus Taurus sends us out.
Eye of Taurus says, Bobby, you said nothing wrong. I am not a fan of Dion or his sons, especially the cockiness.
They are acquired tastes, Taurus. They are acquired tastes. But hey, Dion's won in every arena he's ever been in. And we'll see if his sons are able to do it. Lost in all the sauce is that Shiloh got picked up as an undrafted free agent.
By who?
By Tampa. So congratulations to him. We'll see how this all shakes out. Everybody's fired up on this Tuesday, as am I. Great conversation. Good stuff. And if everybody wants me to apologize because you didn't like what I said, you ain't getting it. It's not how it works. It's not how it works. It's not, you don't get backed up against the wall, right, and forced to apologize because of an opinion. That's not how debate format works.
Okay.
The last time I checked.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out.
I agree with you. Here's a question I have for you. If you think you're wrong, you'll apologize, right? if you think you're wrong. I'm not saying in this situation, but you'll apologize if you think you're wrong. Like, you won't just not apologize to never apologize.
Oh, I would just correct myself. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's if
If
something
you feel it's
warrant,
warranted,
are you
you
just
will
talking about
apologize.
in debate in general?
I'm talking about in general. Yeah. If you feel like you said something wrong, you would like later apologize. But you're not going to do it just because people are demanding it from you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
It's
just-
funny when you say apologize, it's as if it's something that, I would like, if apology is warranted, it would be an apology.
Yeah.
If a clarification was warranted, which I think is the better word,
Sure.
that would of course be the case. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Which actually somebody just DM me. This is a perfect way to close out because we're always looking for feedback and we can get better. Some guy named Dan just DM me on Instagram and goes, yo, some constructive criticism. I've heard you say multiple times that Malachi Starks won multiple national championships at Georgia. He only won one as a freshman. That was news to me. I heard it from somewhere else, and I should have done more research on that. So, or I think I read it somewhere else, which means whoever, and I, instead of looking it up, apparently he's a one-time national championship winner. So,
Yeah.
my apologies.
There
I'm
you
calling
go.
him a
Boom.
multi-time national
There you go.
championship winner.
There you go.
Appreciate you guys.
I just wanted to put that on that record for you because sometimes that can be misconstrued. Like, you're not digging your heels in just to dig your heels in. Like, if you feel like you're wrong, you would say so.
And then we got more super chats on
Oh, there we go.
While we're doing this, we got another membership celebration. Ty2 Wavy just became a member for a month. So thank you, Ty2 Wavy, for being with us. We appreciate you. And Olu says, Bobby, you're super emotional, my guy. You're in a public opinion space. You're making a living here. LOL. What's your point? Super emotional about what? I don't know. I actually don't think I'm that emotional of a person. I think I'm definitely emotional internally, but I don't allow a lot of it to get external. Yeah. But maybe it's coming across in a different way. Appreciate
it. Hey, you're giving a passionate debate. I like it.
I'm trying to put on my Sarah hat. Let's go. Here's the funny part. Now, all right, now you know what I'm going to do?
There we go. Now let's get emotional, Bobby.
You guys ready for this? All right, let me get set up in my chair for this. You ready for this? We'll close on this. It's 1:30, 90 minutes. What the frick are we doing? Okay. You ready for this? Now I'm running hot on this one.
There we go.
This is about our audience, whom I love and I appreciate and I cherish. So much of our audience constantly says, Bobby, you're bland. Bobby, you're compared to Sarah, you don't raise your voice. You don't care about anything. You're not passionate about the topics that you cover. And then I do it and I bring it and I put on my Sarah hat and I get rocked. I am emotional today. You know what? Olu, you're correct, Olu. I'm emotional in this moment. You can't win out here. It's a lose-lose. What are we doing?
So Bobby, you're Bobby Ellison today. Bobby Sarah.
Bobby
Passion today.
I just can't. I mean, that now that I think about it, it's getting me worked up, right? Yeah. Everybody's going, Bobby bland, Bobby this, Bobby that. And then I give it to you and I bring it.
Yeah.
And I'm getting rocked.
Yeah. No, I actually appreciate it because we've had this discussion offline because, like, I'll be like, hey, if you disagree, like, say it. You know what I mean? Because, like, it all stemmed from when we had that really, passionate Mark Andrews debate a couple weeks ago where, like, I feel like you finally, like, really voiced passionately how you disagreed with me. And I felt like the several episodes before you weren't doing that. And so I encouraged you to be like, hey, when you disagree, say it, say it. And so I'm glad you're doing it. So obviously what comes with it, and the same thing when I'm passionate, then here's the thing. Here's the thing that I've learned about passion, because I don't know how not to be. When people agree with you, they love your passion and they, by extension, start to love you. But if you're passionate about a take that they hate, then they hate you and they hate your take, and they're going to meet that passion with passion. So you stepped it up, you brought more passion. And so maybe some of the comments were more passionate right back towards you.
To me, this is simple, right? It's a natural progression. You are a diehard fan of the team that you've worked for, the team that you've grown to love, the team that you have a Super Bowl ring for back in 2012. You are naturally going to have, when we cover this team year round daily, you are naturally going to have more opportunities. I've been on record for sharing unapologetically that I'm not a fan, but I really appreciate the opportunity to build around fandom because of our audience, to build a company that hopefully people appreciate. But I think naturally there are few and far between times where I feel really compelled to speak up the way that I did today with Shador,
Right.
the way that we did with Mark, right? It's not typically things that are revolving around fandom. So
No,
it's not that I don't
listen,
have passion. I have
yeah.
it in me. I have it in me. I have it in me.
I
Believe
know
me.
you do.
But I'm not going to fabricate things for the good of a debate or for the purpose of a debate, because I think you guys would know it would feel watered down, and ultimately that would not be me being transparent.
No, and I love that. I just want to clarify one thing. I for sure do not hide my fandom for the Ravens. I remember for a minute there, I tried to be like other reporters and try to be, even keel and all that. And it doesn't matter because I work for the teams and I once collected checks from them. I no longer, and I haven't since 2018. And so so there's no point in me trying to like even pretend I don't root for the Ravens, because even when I tried to not, people would call me out anyway. So I'm like, forget this. I'm leaning all the way in. That being said, I think by you pointing out that I'm a fan, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like you're implying that they're going to agree with me more often. But how many times do people get angry over my Mark Andrews just because I'm my Mark Andrews take, right? Like, so I'm openly a fan, you are not, and yet you believe in Mark Andrews or have more trust in him than I do. So the fandom doesn't get in the way of that. Or today I had some pushback on my Ardarius Washington take, right? Even though I'm a fan of Ardarius Washington, I'm reading the tea leaves and I see something how it is. So even though I'm a fan, it doesn't mean that I don't get pushback, and it doesn't mean I don't say anything against what most fans believe. So I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, of course. And then at the same time goes back, there's a lot of people, our audience is growing. There's people in the live chat right now that haven't been a part of our past conversations about my fandom or lack thereof. And people are, some are taken aback by it right now in the chat. So look, I guess we need to reset every once in a while because we are growing. We are somebody that's a channel that is reaching new people on a monthly basis. So look, the bottom line is, and we got to go after this, is I began my career as a broadcaster. Sarah began hers as a writer and media member for the Ravens organization. And really, I guess technically as a PR intern when it all first started. So you kind of touched a bunch of different angles within the.
I was in the sales department for a year too.
There you have it. Right? So you got to see it. You got to see it from all these different angles. I started my career with NBC Sports down in DC. I had a pursuit in mind of traditional media. I wanted to be a play-by-play broadcaster, a host, right? Somebody that could be a sideline reporter and do it all. And that's what I spent the majority of my 20s doing until I got an opportunity to be the lead post-game show host and analyst for the Ravens radio team. I went from DC to Baltimore. It was my first big break in the business, an awesome opportunity. I ran with it. And with that, my platform started to grow for Ravens and Ravens coverage and Baltimore sports coverage. And so when I was let go in 2022, you were one of the first people that I called when I made a decision after much reflection that maybe, just maybe,
to be exact, just to be clear.
I'm sorry.
I was your second call, just to be clear.
Rebecca and Ellison.
It's a running joke in the household. My husband, years before meeting me, had proposed to somebody else, and so my kids joke that I was number 2, and so we add this on top of it. Jeff Zrebeck was your first call. I was number 2. I don't mind being number 2. Keep going.
Jeff and Sarah and Jeff. That was, in my mind, it was like, let me have these conversations. But yes, we have a good spirited joke back and forth. And then once I realized the context of what it meant in your life, I actually thought it was really funny. So, So anyway, the long story short is I pivoted, decided to go full-time in the digital space rather than making a lateral move to 105.7 The Fan, rather than moving markets and just leaving and upheaving and just going. Yeah. And with that, my traditional media approach has stayed with me. Maybe one day I will get to the network level, but I'm not going to change or try to fabricate or water down my approach and fake to you guys that I'm a fan, because I'm not. I grew up in upstate New York. When I got into broadcasting, I stripped all of my sports loyalty, all New York sports across the board. Now I love sport. I love the coverage of sport. I love the business of sport, and I love the partnership of sport that you and I have had a chance to do.
We have a phenomenal partnership for sure.
You guys
I'll
got
just
us
say
down a
this.
rabbit hole. We
I'll
went
just-
down it. I'm in it now. I am bunkered down in the rabbit hole. I
Yes.
hope you guys are appreciative of it, and maybe, just maybe, it was educational for those of you who just joined the show.
I'll just say this with all the background you just gave, and I'm going to say this in the most respectful manner possible because I think this is helpful. I think given what you just said, and I think it's 100% true, and I don't think you should change. I do think you might want to consider when you can, because I know you have on your personal channel, you have sponsorships. I think you should consider changing Bobby Baltimore, given everything you just said.
Maybe.
And that comes from a complete place of love and trying to help you out with who you want to be in this space. So I know you can't right now. I know you have sponsors, all that kind of stuff, but I think long term, it would match up better with who you want to be in this space.
Maybe. And then that's obviously a conversation that I got to have, like you said, with sponsors, and ultimately where that came from. I think a lot of this gets misconstrued, especially with the lunch break hot take guys that did a whole thing on it back in October. It blew up on their space and people were coming after me. It got ugly. It was given to me. It was nicknamed, someone in my audience nicknamed me that, and I decided to run with it. And if that's
you embraced it.
And if that's
that
not
was
the
your
way
choice.
and if there's more alignment with my brand at this point with where things are headed, maybe those conversations need to be had. But to your point, there's a lot of layers to it that has now been built that I would have to take a look at and ultimately see if that's the right fix. So we'll see. Appreciate you guys.
You feel better? Do we feel better? We got a lot off our chest.
You know, it's funny. I didn't even feel like I needed to get stuff off my chest. We just went in that direction.
No, I know. I mean, feel better since it all kind of went down. I know that we didn't come into this show thinking we were going to go down this route. That's for sure.
Oh, I'm great. Yeah, this is great. I mean, I was like stunned that we went in this direction, but it just kind of happened, and I got just very spirited about the conversation. And then, of course, we're having a good time. I mean, it's all fun. I think it's hilarious that I can kind of. I mean, the first thing I thought of when everybody was ripping me for being passionate was that's what they call for. You know, I find that funny.
Yeah,
it's a fun back and forth. So
it's definitely ironic.
But at the end of the day, the fact that 2,709 people are choosing to watch this and debate us back, weigh in whether it's positive, negative, or in the middle, I find gratitude in that. Hopefully the show continues. So
absolutely.
Thank you guys for joining us on this Tuesday. We'll be back with you in under 23 hours for a Wednesday show. And remember, over the course of the next few days, we are going to learn more about the AFC North. So just know the second half of our shows, the rest of this week, will be, representative of what's going on within the division. So 12:30, Wednesday through Friday. For Sarah Ellison, I'm Bobby Trossett signing off from this Tuesday Ravens Lunch Hour live stream. We'll catch up with you on Wednesday. And as always, Voltrons, we appreciate you for spending part of your day with us right here inside the vault. And we'll catch up with you soon. Later.